previous BVSers. Whoa! The gang's all here. Everyone who's everyone is here. Okay, she's texting me that they're having a good time sitting. So Service Sunday is something that the Church of the Brethren does, and it typically takes place the first Sunday in February. So you will note that that is like distinctly not today. But what the BVS team thought might be helpful is to have a recording of some current active volunteers and our BVS staff that we could then send out to other congregations that they could play on Service Sunday. So that's what this is, some material that may or may not be used by other congregations on the first Sunday in February. So as much as this is for you all here, it's also for other congregations that will potentially want to use this media. So that's the little intro. What else can I say? BVS, founded in 1948. Oh, can you hear me now? Can they hear me now, or are they laughing at somebody else? Ugh, I hate when they do that. They all look great. They're really there. I do. I'm wondering if it's worth it to wait to give them a chance to introduce themselves, or if I should just introduce them while we're waiting. I'm going to introduce them. I heard the ringtone. All right, so on the top right, your right, is Chelsea Skillen, who's the director of Brethren Volunteer Service. She's my boss, so everybody be cool. She's worked there for about a year and a half now, and she's located in Elgin at the Church of the Brethren headquarters. Can you hear me now? Hi, guys. Oh, we've been so excited. We've been waiting for so long to get any reaction from you guys. I'm so happy that you're all here. I was just vamping. I think based on what I'm hearing is that we might not be able to get a camera on the congregation for you guys, but we're able to see you. Hopefully you're able to hear us. I'm going to walk around with a microphone. There's not really any reason for me to be facing them. They can't see me. They don't know what I'm doing. And while we were waiting, I just kind of gave an introduction to what we were doing here, and that this is going to be recorded and sent out to other congregations in case they want to use it on the first Sunday in February. And then I was just introducing Chelsea because I thought that that would be a good use of time. But before we get started, I wanted to just give you all a chance to introduce yourselves. So maybe a quick introduction of who you are, where you're serving at, maybe the organization you're serving with, and your home church, if that's something that's relevant to you. So do we want to start with Chelsea in your own words, and we can compare with what I said? And this will be a good test of our audio also.
Hey everyone there at Manchester, good to see you again. Although I can't really see you, but good to be there in presence with you and those who are joining after. So I'm Chelsea Goss-Skillen, the director. I've been here in this role for a little over a year now. It was a really exciting year, which we can talk about more in a little bit with the 75th anniversary of BVS. My home church is West Richmond Church of the Brethren, is where I grew up. And then I was in BVS 2 different years in Portland with Honor with Peace, and then in the BVS office in Elgin. And I think those experiences kind of paved the way for me to be here as the director here in Elgin. And we've had a great year so far. And I don't want to talk about that too much yet. We can save that for later. Anything else, Virginia?
No, I think that's perfect. Marissa, do you want to do your other quick staff introduction? Oh, I'm sorry. That's so annoying. I have to get unmuted so that you guys can hear me every time. But I was calling on Marissa to do a quick staff intro.
Marissa Witkowski-Eldred. I've also been with the BVS team for a year and a few months, and I'm the coordinator of short-term service, which is the FaithX program that a lot of you probably formerly knew as work camps. I also spent time as a BVSer in 2018 and 2019 in the same program. So I was with the BVS office working on work camps and FaithX and coordinating those.
Perfect. Thank you, Marissa. I'm going to have the rest of you just talk kind of in turn so we don't have to switch back and forth. Can we do Anna, Seth, Kendall in that order? Thanks.
Hi, I'm Anna Schweitzer. Currently, I'm serving in Baltimore at Project Place, which is a homeless shelter, like temporary housing. I've been here since August. And my home church is back in Ohio, Cedar Grove Church of the Brethren.
Good morning, friends. My name is Seth Spire. I'm from Bridgewater, Virginia. Grew up at the Sangerville Church of the Brethren. And after attending Bridgewater College, I came out here to Portland, Oregon, where I am now currently at Snowcap Community Charities doing work. So we have both a food pantry as well as clothing services we provide for the community out here.
Hi, I'm Kendall. I'm currently in San Diego at the San Diego Peace Campus with the San Diego First Church of the Brethren. And I'm not Brethren, but I went to the North Manchester Church of the Brethren during college.
Thank you all so much. Sorry, there's a little lag while we switch back and forth, but I really appreciate your answers. So most of what this is going to be is a Q&A with an opportunity for you all to ask questions to our current volunteers and staff, anything that you want to know about BVS or service in the Church of the Brethren in general. But I'm going to kick it off, I think, with a question for our volunteers. Kind of a little bit, if you could just talk, maybe even in the same order, about what called you to serve at this time in your life, what made you decide to do BVS, and any other information that you want to give us about kind of what you're doing at your placement. Just to reiterate, we have somebody who's in Baltimore, somebody who's in Portland, and somebody in San Diego.
Yeah, so I don't know. What called me to do BVS? That is a good question. I knew that I didn't want to go right into college, and I knew that I wanted to take kind of a gap year between high school and college. But I knew that I didn't want to spend it at home doing nothing. And I know a lot of people who have had just such a great life-changing experience in BVS. And when I went to National Youth Conference, I was just able to talk to a lot of people, and they kind of just encouraged me to just apply and see, if it would be my thing. And just as I learned more about it, I was like, yeah, this is something I want to do. I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to just grow more as a person. And working with the homeless population here in Baltimore has definitely been that. I've learned a lot, and I've also learned, more specifically, I guess, I've learned more about the drug epidemic here. That has really been a lot of my work and how that affects people every day. So it's been very enlightening and very, very different than anything I've experienced before.
For me, coming out of college, I was kind of led in a couple different directions, trying to make a decision. Do I just go straight to a job? Do I look for a different opportunity? Do I continue my education? And as I kind of prayed on where I was at and what I was looking for, it kind of just started to align with doing a year of BVS, that I could get an opportunity to grow in my faith by living it out in a community and serving and doing what I can to try and help make the world just a little bit of a better place every single day. And so I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I'm so happy that it all worked out. I'm glad I get to follow in the footsteps of so many amazing people that have done BVS before me and that are my good friends. So it's an absolute joy to get to do this.
I knew that I wanted to do some sort of volunteer year coming out of college, but I wasn't sure like through what organization. But then I had friends that did BVS, like Virginia, and it just seemed like a really good organization. And so I decided to do that. And for my work here, I kind of work on 3 different like areas. We have our Welcoming Heart Ministry, which helps asylum seekers. Then I work in our Peace Garden and plan like community events.
Okay, my turn to talk. Okay, thank you all so much. I should say that we have 2 volunteers here who are from BVS Unit 333 and 1 from BVS Unit 334. So if that gives any context to folks in the audience who did BVS, maybe where you are in relation to our current years. And Chelsea and Marissa, if you guys ever want to jump in with experience from your BVS year or your time on staff, please feel free. Do we have any questions from the audience? I'm going to run around with the microphone. Oh, I have 2 hands already, guys. This is very exciting. So here I go into the audience. They can't see me. Headed over here first. Do you want to just share your name?
I'm Marilyn Kiefaber. I'm curious, how many BVS projects are there, and how do you decide which one you'd like to choose? Do you have a choice, or are you kind of told we'd like you to go to a certain place, or how does that work? I've never really known that.
Thank you.
As far as number, and then I'll let one of the volunteers speak on the process a little bit, and I can fill in if needed. We have about 50 BVS projects that are active. The organizations that we work with usually they're linked to one of our 4 goals. So advocating justice, working for peace, caring for creation, or serving human need. And those organizations that we're working with are making a difference in their local communities. And not every year they might not be available every single year because they might have a full staff already, or they already have a volunteer or budget limits. But we have about 50 organizations we're working with on any given year, but there is some ebb and flow on which ones are actually available at the time when a certain volunteer comes into BVS. Do one of you all want to take it away with what that process actually looked like?
I can talk a little bit about that. So the process of deciding on a project. So BVS provides prospective volunteers with information write-ups about all of the projects. And so from there, and they also walk us through all of the projects as well, showing us more about what the certain organizations are up to, what our living situation would be there, trying to give us a lot of background information. And then from there, we get the opportunity to kind of set like our top 3, if I remember correctly, and kind of have, as we walk through, kind of choose 3 that are kind of speaking to us the most, that we feel most led to. And then after we choose that, we kind of work with BVS staff to think through those options and see which one of those 3 is kind of the best fit. And sometimes it's none of those 3, sometimes it's the first choice, but it's just always a process to find where we can fit best and do the best work with our skills, our mindset, and what we're interested in achieving for that year.
I'll say just a little. A 3-way kind of partnership in some ways, or there's 3 ways of communicating. So the volunteers, they let us know which project they're interested in. the projects are letting us know. So me as the director, they let me know kind of the volunteers that they're interested in, what skill sets they're looking for, if they're interested in a volunteer. And then the BVS staff are working with the volunteers. So for a BVS volunteer to get to a project, we want the volunteer to be on board and feel good about it. We want the project to feel good about that too. They usually do interviews with the volunteers ahead of time to make sure they're a good fit. And then the BVS staff also want to feel good about that placement. So if all three are in alignment, then we say, okay, this is a go.
And it's also, I think, good to note that this process has changed a little bit from how things were done in the past, maybe pre-pandemic. The placement process used to take place during orientation. All of our volunteers complete a 9 or 10-day orientation, which used to be 3 weeks. So during that 3-week orientation, you would get placed at your project. So going into orientation, some of you may have experienced this, not knowing where you would be serving for the next year. Now we do a lot of that before orientation online with things like Zoom interviews, and so that's been a way that BVS has kind of adapted and shifted in recent years to be a little bit different from the previous process. Is that helpful, Marilyn? Awesome. Okay, other questions? So we have a question about how BVSers support themselves. Does anybody want to take that?
Yeah, I can answer. So my project gives me a stipend of $527 a month, and that is for my bus pass, for my groceries, and then like stipend just for spending money, what I want to spend it on. And then my project also pays my rent where I live. So I'm not putting anything into savings, but I'm not spending more than my stipend, really.
Yeah, I'll add something that like fluctuates. So everyone, Chelsea, correct me if I'm wrong, but gets a $250 stipend for their placement, and then the food stipend varies like site to site. So some sites will provide food for a volunteer, so their food stipend will be significantly less than someone like at my site. They don't provide any food, so my food stipend's maybe a little bit higher, and so it's dependent about where you live too.
All right, I think I had another question over here. I've seen your hand.
Hi, this is especially for Seth. I know that in the past, the Portland project, along with one in Cincinnati, have been set up a little differently to have a community of volunteers that are living together. And is that still the case, or has that changed at this point?
For the Portland project, I know it has changed a little bit. Because I know in the past they had a BVS house in Portland connected with the Peace Church of the Brethren in Portland, and where volunteers who were serving at multiple sites would be living. I know that is no longer here, unfortunately, but at Snowcap there are currently 3 BVSers here serving, so the 3 of us are living together and working alongside at Snowcap. So we do still have a community, and Snowcap is set up to provide housing for multiple volunteers. So we do get to have a little bit of a community, but I don't think it's quite the same as when Chelsea was here in Portland, for example.
Okay, I'm headed into the audience here in a big way. I'm passing the mic.
Tim McElwee, and I heard about a study that I think Greg Lazakovitz was helping with a few years ago that was basically testing how much the membership of the Church of the Brethren knew about BVS and how few were coming into BVS, etc. You've got the 75th anniversary, Jim Lehman's book certainly helps, and all that you're doing, Chelsea and Marissa and Virginia, to promote and help inform the church about BVS. I guess I'm just thinking, I consider BVS one of the most important programs in our denomination. And my question is, what can we do to join you, to partner with you, to help more members of the Church of the Brethren know about BVS so that we can encourage more people to join?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're right, from that study, what it mostly found was that people love BVS. The Church of the Brethren is so centered around service, and BVS is something that folks really hold dear. But like you said, the numbers have been going down. And so then how, this team that we have now is really re-looking at how we've done things and tweaking things so that we can be more relevant to young people, that we can spread the word about service in the church and all these good things to more people. One of the biggest things I would say is tapping people on the shoulder who might be a good fit. Out at Seth, Anna, and Kendall, it sounds like from your experiences, like that was your case for each of you, wasn't that? Like someone, like you might have heard about BVS, but someone said, hey, you should check this out. Is that true for you all? Kinda, Anna? Yeah, okay. Seth, yeah, kind of. And so that's one of the easiest things, is just to, be thinking about who might be a good fit. And we have a bunch of young people just out of school on the panel, but BVS is for all ages. Our oldest volunteer this past year was 76. We had a couple who was, more middle-aged. So really there's an age range that we don't have on this panel this morning, but all are welcome to come join into BVS. So tapping people on the shoulder, doing stuff like this that you're doing. Marissa, Virginia, do you have are you thinking of other things?
I think from the context of FaithX, which are the shorter term options for a similar type of experience, but not a whole year commitment. I have been reaching out more to different churches this year than those that have historically participated, and some folks still have really never heard of like this program and work camps and FaithX and even BVS to some extent. So I think that the more we're just talking about it in general and realizing that there's options for even all ages, with FaithX being kind of part of the BVS umbrella. We have a new trip this summer that we're doing that's a family trip. So really children of any age up through 100 can join in a trip and kind of get started at a younger age. And that also helps feed into some like a BVS year that's a year-long experience when they're old enough. So just kind of sharing the whole picture and sharing what your experiences have been is really helpful.
Yeah, to add to what Marissa said, just the general, engaging with our program. So sending youth like your church has done to FaithX trips, doing things like, did Kendall, Anna, and Seth, did you all receive a lot of Christmas cards this year? How many Christmas cards did you receive?
Probably like 30. I got a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is something usually that the volunteers don't know is coming, and then they get bombarded with Christmas cards from churches. And so that's like twofold, right? The volunteers feel supported, but then also you're engaging the church in these tiny ways that people are thinking about, oh, there's actually people in our denomination that are out serving. And so you can start having those conversations with even kids, young kids. And so the more that they hear about it, the more that they're involved from a young age, especially, I think that helps kind of prep them for this idea of when they're old enough, they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go into BVS. BVS in the past was a rite of passage for many young people within the Church of the Brethren. And it's not, we're not seeing that quite as much like it used to be. So I think the more that we can talk about it, the more that we can engage in it with our programs, then that's just going to help the conversation continue to grow and continue getting in the ears of those people who might benefit from joining us for a year or for a week if you're with FaithX.
Yeah, I would say that recruitment is a big focus for us this year. That's something we really want to think about intentionally for people of all ages and for people of all faith backgrounds. So recognizing that BVS is not necessarily just for folks who have been raised brethren, but it's a great opportunity to participate in an organization that's going to allow you to explore your faith. And I would say that part of that too is the ways that BVS has kind of updated itself for the current generation. So many of you will notice that the stipend is a bit more generous than it used to be maybe back in the day, because we're recognizing that cost of living is kind of increasing, and we want volunteering to be something that's realistic for folks and something that they're able to do, maybe just beyond being called, but making it really practically realistic for folks. And then, you know, there are many reasons why somebody might choose BVS as opposed to other volunteer organizations, which maybe we can talk about. But I think those are a couple of ways that we're kind of trying to expand the reach that BVS has. Okay, I'm headed over to Kurt, and then I'll go to Joel, and then I'll go to Tina. Everybody wants to know everything.
Hi, this is Kurt Rowland. FaithX, I guess, is a new term. Are those for short term, like 1 week, 2 weeks, and then for some of us who can't commit to a whole year, are there other opportunities like 3 months or 6 months, or are you locked into a year service?
Yeah, so FaithX is a new term. Used to be called work camps for the same program, just a new name. FaithX stands for Faith Outreach Expeditions, but they shorten it to be a little more fun. And yeah, it's definitely the great option if you can't commit to BVS for a whole year, or if you're under that age of 18 and can't yet be a BVSer. The trips range in length from 5 days for junior high to about 10 days for adults. And we do have for all ages, as I mentioned. So we have the traditional junior and senior high trips, but we have the new family trip that is providing childcare in addition to everything else that you typically do on a FaithX trip, so that families can come, children who are maybe too young or need a break during the day can participate as much as they can, but then have that childcare aspect to take a break. We have also a new older adult focused trip that's happening in about a month down in Florida during the winter. So we're expanding to that age group. And we also have adult trips. The international adult trip is the longest, and then there's a domestic option. And we have a We Are Able trip for folks with intellectual disabilities. So there's a really wide range and something for anyone. I don't know if Chelsea, you want to answer the other part of that question for BVS?
Sure. And I was just going to add that there's still time to sign up for the older adult trip until the end of the month. You can sign up for that. Yeah, for BVS, typically it's a year or more. If you're over 55, we can't see people in the audience. But if you're over 55, then we can talk about a 6-month term instead of a year. So those would be our shorter options right now.
All right, thank you so much. Who's next? Tina, can I come to you now? Perfect. All right.
My name is Tina Raymond, BVS Unit 215. And my question is, what have been some of the most rewarding parts of your service so far? And you could speak to that either as sort of a broad stroke, what kind of has been rewarding, or something very specific.
I'll go first. I think for me, the community here is really nice. So I work with the Church of the Brethren in San Diego, and they have really just taken me under their wing and been a great support system here. And then within my work, just working with the asylum seekers and learning more about the process has been really rewarding, and to work with them and help them through that process.
For me, it's Snowcap at the food pantry. Every December, the Snowcap does Christmas type stuff. So putting together gifts for all of the kids. So when we have families that come, they can get gifts for their kids. We were also able to give out Christmas trees this year, and it was awesome to see the joy on people's face when they know they've got gifts for their kids that maybe they weren't expecting, or when they got a Christmas tree. And part of what was so rewarding about that is just that it's all community run. They have a connection to someone that owns a Christmas tree farm, and they donated like 30 trees, and just to be able to give back to the community. So very meaningful to see the work we're doing, but especially to see the community come together to support people that are in need.
I think one of the most rewarding aspects of my job has been seeing people get into permanent or temporary housing. For a lot of people, they maybe have been homeless for years and they haven't lived in their own place for so long. But we're able to connect them with resources and connect them with like vouchers from the city so they can just be on their own and support themselves. So that's very rewarding. One of the most fulfilling parts I found out here, like Kendall, is also my church. I attend a wonderful Mennonite church out here, and they're just so welcoming, and it's just such an intelligent and kind group of people. That has been one of the best parts out here, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. Other questions? Oh, I've got one. I'm going into the audience. Here we go.
This is Jan Rhodes, and I have one quick question for Kendall. Working with asylum seekers, are you using your Spanish?
Oh, we missed her answer.
Oh, I said yes, every day.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me right now? Oh, okay, great. They can hear me. Did we fix it? Oh, cool. It was maybe divine intervention. Can we say that? Could be. Okay, I'm really glad. Yes, I've got a question over here. Kendall, I'm glad you're using your Spanish. Here we go.
This is Jim Chenworth, and I've got a bit of a follow-up on what Tina asked. And I assume you all went into BVS because you have a heart for service, you have a faith for service. And I'm wondering, given the amount of time you've been there, has that perspective at all changed on how you see service or how you see yourself in service? Has that deepened your faith or expanded it in some way, or have you left something of your faith behind because something in your experience so far has caught your attention?
I can go. So growing up in little small town Indiana and going to a little rural church in Ohio for most of my life, it's definitely been a wildly different experience out in Baltimore going to an inner city church. The church has just really opened my eyes to how connected to a community we can be. Not that my church back in Ohio was not, but just how it's a different way of connected. We are able to serve the community here in Baltimore just in different ways than we were able to in Ohio. And it's been really, really interesting for me just to see how different, like where a church is causes the church to be different. So that has definitely expanded my faith, and seeing so many people at my church that have served with the Mennonite, with the MVS Mennonite, They've also shared their experiences with me, and they always tell me like how proud they are that I'm doing BVS, and they're so excited to hear anything about my experience. So having such a connected and service experienced community around me has been very deepening for my faith.
I think for me, it's mostly just been a learning experience. I was raised Catholic, and I now go to the Brethren Church here every weekend. And so that's been a different experience, just learning more about the Brethren Church and what they stand for. I remember being really, I don't know the right word, I guess in shock a little bit the first Sunday I went, because they were all having coffee during church. And like, you do not like drink something during church when like the Catholic Church. But I've come to really like that. And just the community here, kind of like Anna, the way that they serve and show up for their community, I find really inspiring. Even though they're a small church, they have a really big heart. And I've enjoyed getting to know them all.
From growing up in the Church of the Brethren, there was always a emphasis on living out your faith, and but I never really fully, I think, understood exactly what that meant until starting my year of BVS, where I'm kind of living out many of our Brethren values, living very simply on a small budget and using my time to serve. And it's just been eye-opening. I mean, like Anna, I grew up in a very small community, and now I'm in the big city. So it's been eye-opening in so many ways. And I know that at Snowcap, they have so many other volunteers that are coming in 1 day a week. I do a driving route to go pick up food, and the buddy I drive with, he's 87 years old, and it's just been incredible to see him working. And he doesn't exactly have a faith background, but he's driven to serve his community and to do good in the world. So it's definitely opened my eyes to different ways of living and how people sometimes have different motivations to get to a similar goal of doing good in this world.
It's really good to hear that you've made a friend, Seth. That's so important. Who else has a question? Joel, did you have a hand up? Here I go. I'm on the move.
I'm Joel Eikenberry, and of course I have two questions. We may not get to them all at one time. The first one I would say is, having been in BVS myself and having expectations before I went, things on site were not quite what I anticipated or could guess. What are some of your greatest challenges that you've experienced, that you've had to face as you've gone into your new assignment? And the second question is more for the administration. That is, how often does BVS placement fail?
I guess I can go first. One of the most challenging things about just my life in general is this is my first time living by myself at all. To be so far away from my family and having just graduated high school, that's definitely been a challenging part, is to just do so much growing up and so much adulting in such a small period of time. That's been a challenge. But for work, the challenge has definitely been seeing other people struggle and seeing other people not be able to escape addiction and sometimes pass away. I've definitely been around a lot more death than I thought I would be around. That has been a very challenging aspect, is to see some of our clients pass away. It's been that's a challenge.
For me, I guess one of the initial challenges I had was getting used to public transit. I grew up, had a car. That's the only way to get around in rural Virginia. And starting to explore with explore Portland with public transit and certainly opened my eyes. You see a wide variety of people on there, and sometimes it's kind of shocking and kind of difficult to see what some people on public transit are going through, and that's been incredibly disheartening some days, but it's certainly shown me why groups like nonprofits that are doing good in the world are so important. And through Snowcap, it's been more or less what I was expecting. There have been a couple times where it's been a little bit more of a monotonous job. We get a giant thing of apples that come into the food bank, and we have to bag it up into smaller bags because we can't exactly give out a 50-pound bag of apples to people as easily. And sometimes that's kind of a monotonous job, but it's part of the service. Sometimes it's not the exciting stuff, but it's stuff that needs to be done to get to help people in our community. And so you work through it, and even in the rough moments, you know that there's a reason for what you're doing, that there's a lot of good that is going to happen from any of the work you're doing.
I think at first the most challenging thing, kind of like Anna said, was just being so far away. I have lived on my own before, but not thousands of miles away. And so that was a challenge, and just finding a community. For work, I think one aspect that's been tricky is like learning legal processes for asylum seekers, because there's just a lot of different steps and a lot of different ways things can go. And trying to learn all of that and also translate it has been a difficult thing.
As far as if volunteers don't make it through their year, I remember when I was starting out as the director and I was speaking to the past director, and they were telling me how they were having a conversation with some other organizations, and the other organizations were talking about this and talking about how many people dropped out or didn't finish their year. And the past BVS director was like, oh, that's not even a metric that we keep track of, because it rarely happens for us. While the other organizations were talking about the metric of that, and they're like, oh, we don't even track that because it doesn't happen. It does happen every once in a while, but I think going back to the question about support, like how are volunteers supporting themselves? How are they being supported? One of the unique things about BVS is that it's really focused around relationships. Virginia, who you're speaking to in the congregation right now, she, as a volunteer coordinator, really tries to touch base with the volunteers, having monthly support calls and following up. Like there are certain times that we try to check in with all volunteers, but then Virginia's gone a step further and said, hey, I'm available. Like for once a month, you can give me a call or we can chat and just make sure you're doing okay. So I think Virginia's upped the game there a little bit. And then, yeah, just that relationship piece. A lot of the other organizations, like the director, wouldn't know every volunteer by name and know where their placement is. But with BVS, I think some because of the size, some of their structure, like the BVS staff know who all the volunteers are. And so we really try to, if there are issues, to work through those with our relationships with the partners as well. That only works if we know about stuff going on. I would say the times it doesn't work, which is rare, it's because we are left out of the dark, of like people just didn't tell us what was going on. And if it doesn't work out a project, so that does happen where a volunteer gets to a placement and they're like, you know what, this just isn't what I was expecting. We do sometimes switch volunteers to a different placement. So I would say that's not that they failed or it didn't work. That's just like, okay, well, let's switch you to somewhere else. So that happens more frequently than someone just kind of going out of BVS altogether. Still most of the volunteers stick in their, like they get to other place and they see that you're out. But yeah, if it doesn't work, then the BVS team works with them to try to transition them to someplace that is better suited for them.
Thank you. I think that was great. We're coming up on our time. This ends at 11, right? Is that right? So one more question. Did we have one? Two more questions? I'm seeing, Jan, did you have a question? No? I've got one over here from John.
I'm John Hartsaw. 1969, I was placed in Morocco through Irene, and I noticed there's a number of Germans volunteers. I'm wondering, is that the connection with Irene? And do we send people to Europe through that organization?
Yeah, we still have a partnership with Irene. They, this past year, sent us 12 German volunteers, and probably again this year. So a lot of folks think, oh, that, BVS is mostly made up of Church of the Brethren folks. And while there are a lot of Church of the Brethren folks that come, we have a lot of Irene volunteers. It doesn't work the opposite way, so we're not sending U.S. folks to Europe through Irene, and we're sending those. We have a European coordinator who works with our volunteers in Europe, and we send folks abroad ourselves, not through that Irene program. But yeah, that's still a good partnership that we have with them.
All right, we've got another question here.
Yeah, my name is Les. A quick question about international versus U.S. How many different international programs are there?
I can speak to this, Chelsea, if you'd like. So we have, there's fewer international placements. We have 2 placements currently in Japan, one at the Asian Rural Institute and one at the World Friendship Center. So those are frequently good placements for folks who are maybe older. They take people of all ages. We've also got some placements in Africa, so a couple in Nigeria with our partner, UIN, Church of the Brethren there, and in Rwanda. And then we have a really strong program in Ireland and Northern Ireland as well, so that's really supported by our European coordinator. And then many in South America and Latin America. So a placement in Honduras, in El Salvador, and we recently had a volunteer in Ecuador. So those are just some of the kind of placements that we work with. Not as many internationally. We have a lot more domestic. And part of that, I think, is because we get so many from Irene that come to the U.S. looking to serve in the U.S. And then we have folks who are looking to have an experience domestically as well. But those are most of our international placements. Chelsea, did I miss any in that list? Oh, no. Okay. I think we've got one more question over here. This might be our last one. I'm running, I'm jogging. Guys, this is my top speed.
Thank you. I'm Ron Beam. I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that I think BVS is quite versatile in what they do. I was in IVS in Vietnam, and the Tet Offensive came along, and they sent us all home. I wrote to BVS, asked them if there's some place in Europe that I could go to finish my 2 years of alternative service, and they sent me to Geneva to Dale Ott, who was over there at the time, and I was placed in Germany, and that was quite a good experience. I was in a boys' home there, and it was just so if any of you have anything that you would like to do, that you think you're capable of doing, and write to BVS and see if they want you.
I endorse that. Write to us and see if we want you. We'll let you know. Do we have time for any closing comments? Anything that you all on the panel want to say? Final thoughts?
To the last comment, I'd say, with thinking about the future of BVS, we're really trying to examine how we've been doing it and be innovative and kind of think outside the box. So yeah, if you all have ideas of ways that we could connect or projects or things we should be doing, I'm always happy to hear your thoughts on that. So you can email the BVS team. And just one other thought for BVS from me is that if you want to stay the most up to date with what's happening at BVS, we have started a monthly email newsletter. So in the past, we had a physical newsletter that went out 2 times a year. Now we actually have a monthly e-newsletter that Walt Wilczek, our office coordinator, puts together for us. So if you want to know what's going on with FaithX, with BVS, new project placements, when orientations are going to be, that often is the first place that we post that information. So you can sign up on our on the BVS website, brethrenvolunteerservice.org. There's an e-newsletter sign up, and you can get on our list to just get the most updated info about BVS.
There's some really incredible posts on our Facebook page too. I don't know who's in charge of that, but those are just looking really good lately. So you can check us out on Facebook as well. Thank you all so much for being here today. I hope this was helpful to learn a little bit more about kind of service opportunities within the church and how we can be more engaged. I want to thank our panelists. Thank you all so much for joining us. I know it's quite early for some of you on the West Coast, so thank you so much for being here. It was truly really wonderful, and thank you all for sticking around after church. And I'm going to hang out up here if you guys have any more specific questions or want to chat more about BVS. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.